to deliver. We're part of it. You're part of it. Always on Fox Footy. This is it. Opening round. Richmond, Carlton. Thursday night footy on Fox with the best in the business. Dermot Brereton, Jared Healy, David King, Brad Johnson, Mark McClure, John Ralph, Jonathan Brown, and your host, Eddie Maguire.
Welcome to Thursday Night Footy on Fox.
Tigers Blues kick off season 2016.
And what a place to kick off. Thursday night, Carlton and Richmond at the MCG. Brendan Bolton, 5 wins as a stand-in coach at Hawthorn, but he has got the biggest rebuild in football. Can he put the pride back into the Blues? This young man, Jacob Weitering, broad shoulders and a lot of pressure on him. He's going to go out and do what he's done all his life and play the great game of Aussie rules football. So too that man, Daniel Rioli. Number 17 for the Richmond Football Club. Isn't it great to have a Rioli wearing the yellow and black again? Welcome everybody to Thursday Night Footy, Round 1 action, MCG, the two old rivals, Carlton and Richmond. It doesn't get much bigger than that, and I've got 3 of the biggest names in the game sitting alongside me to go through this build-up to what is going to be a beauty at the MCG tonight. Dermot Brereton, Jonathan Brown, Mark McClure. Welcome, boys. Footy, it's great to have you back.
Oh, magnificent, Ed. I can't wait to see young Jacob Weitering. I mean, 6 months ago, this kid was walking through the tuck shop doors of Peninsula Grammar. Now he carries the weight of hundreds of thousands of Carlton hopefuls on his back. They're all looking at him saying, are you the birth of this regeneration at this club?
You did right, Dermot. I think he's the best, most exciting talent in the last few years, that's for sure. Could be a future Carlton captain, but looking forward to Richmond. Can they redeem themselves after a poor September straight out again? And that hoodoo is really on the back for Richmond. Can they perform tonight and come back?
Thanks to Holden, this is the build-up to tonight's big game. You've got Carlton, who many people would say, hey, they'd be lucky to win 4 games this year. Richmond, many people say they should be a top 4. So, Mark McClure, why are you so confident and why is everybody breaks for Richmond so nervous tonight? Should be a walk in the park, but they could get mugged, Richmond.
Well, the Tigers are inconsistent, as we know, and we see them in grand final day where they don't put up a fight. 33 uncontested possessions down, which kills you in a big game. If they repeat that again, you know what? The Blues are a chance. They got a real chance. Their biggest problem is they got to build the forward line. Their forward line is decimated. Most of them are left. So they've just got to rebuild that with what they've got and put some more midfielders in there at some time. Sometimes sometimes Cruiser go down there as well. So they get some class in that forward line at some stage to kick a score.
Guys, Richmond have had a shocking start to the season. Wow. Since 2005, they haven't turned win-loss in front after 6 rounds. This man, both of these guys, Jack Riewoldt, and we just saw Trent Cotchin before the captain, they really have to live. Poor Trent Cotchin has had to go through the summer from hell after a disappointing final series that no one will let him forget until he redeems himself. And tonight's the night it all starts, Tim.
Gee, we've had some magnification on his outings in finals, haven't we? I mean, the words coming through, everybody's now saying Cotchin hasn't performed on the big stage, as if it was a one-man show to fight the fight in the first week of finals over the last 3 years.
You're dead right, Tim. The biggest problem Richmond got, their stars don't play well on the same day in finals. And Shane Edwards, the guy that hasn't got a kick at all in finals. But to win finals and to win big games, your best players need to all play well on the same day, Derm, as you know.
Well, your name's built in finals, mate.
Yeah,
it's not built any other day, it's in the finals, so that's how it's built.
Well, they've been no good in the finals and they've been even worse at the start of the year. They are 14 wins, 2 draws and 44 losses from their first 6 games since 2006. John Ralph, roar like a tiger for us, pal. He's a big tiger man.
Only been nervous for 6 months, Ed.
Good on you, mate. What have you got for us tonight, Ralphie?
Well, no late changes when the final teams landed on our desk only 90 seconds ago, and thankfully no substitutes to worry about this year. But this is not the team that Richmond wanted to pick. 5 of their best players out of their best 22. Now, Ben Griffiths comes in. He has played 60 minutes of NAB football, of course, concussed by Aaron Sandlands. Stephen Morris has only played 29 minutes since the first NAB Challenge game 6 weeks ago. Daniel Rioli and Jacob Townsend are new faces, and we know know that Rioli did okay on grand final day with Norm Smith last time out. Now, for Carlton, those 5 new faces, Jacob Wiedering, of course, but also Sam Kerridge and Andrew Phillips and Jed Lamb and Matthew Wright. Just Dale Thomas out of Carlton's best 22. Now, of course, they will be significant underdogs, but Richmond will not be as vulnerable for a long time this year. They might think they're gettable.
Good on you, Ralphie. It just makes for a fascinating night. Let's go out to the MCG. Brad Johnson is there, played many great games in his 364 games for the Western Bulldogs. Jono, the tension, the build-up, we're ready to go. What's it like at the G?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting out here, Ed. Things are really building up, as you mentioned. The ground, the best stadium in the world, it's in perfect condition. The deck behind me is absolutely magnificent. So look for a fast game here at the MCG tonight. Got to talk to Jacob Wiedering in the middle of the MCG. He's just a calm, cool cat. Doomies already mentioned him. Look forward to his first game. I walked around. I followed Trent Cotchin for about 5 minutes. Couldn't catch his eye. Had to move on pretty quickly, but he's extremely focused as well. So look forward for a big game from Wiedering, but the captain for the Tigers as well in Trent Cotchin.
Good on you, Johnny. Probably thought you were going to tag him the way you were going. It's the last thing he wants is to have somebody following him around before the game.
Either that or Jono's a stalker.
Yeah, I'm tipping he's going to have somebody holding onto his jumper for most of the night. David King and Gerard Healy are in the Ultratune Lab in season 2016. They give us all the mail before it happens and then we watch it unfold. Good evening, boys. Welcome to 2016. I'm sure that Cotchin will have somebody nice and tight to him, but I'm looking forward to what you've got to say this year. Welcome, boys.
Doesn't get much space. Thanks, Ed. Great to be back. Gerard, it's great to be upon round one. It's taken a long time coming. There's no tension like Tiger tension, though, is there?
Amazing
they are a nervous club, and round one really puts the fright into them. Have a look at round 1 to 9 here, and you can see why, Gerard. They're the 3rd toughest run at the start of the season of anyone in the competition, and rightfully they're a little bit toey.
Well, I think they are, and Ed knows this. He's been winding them up there. They've got the Pies next week, so they desperately need to win this game. Damien Hardwick, I think, is under the microscope as well. Their skipper, Trent Cotchin, has been wearing a lot of baggage because of his performance. He needs a chop out as well. There needs to be some tactical uplifting for the Tigers.
Round 6 to round 9 is where it gets really difficult for the Tigers. Port Adelaide, Hawthorn, Sydney,
start.
or the MCG, and then they go over to Fremantle at Domain Stadium. So it's a tough run their first 9 weeks.
Yeah, by round 4, we're going to know exactly where the Tigers sit. And they're going to need a little bit of an improved performance from some of their mid-range players. Everybody's expecting an uplift. You know, some people are tipping them for the grand final, but really they've only added Yaron to the list. They've got a young Rioli. Yaron has actually become a negative for them. It's made them look a little bit fragile. So they're going to have an improvement from within.
Carlton were rebuilding 5 days ago, Ed. Now they're looking to win their first game in round 1.
That's why we love this game. No one really knows what's going to happen. And it's all about the A word, anticipation.
Certainly that first bounce really gets the hair standing up on the back of your neck, and yeah, you really want to perform well, and it sort of either, you know, it's that fight or flight mentality. You're either ready for the challenge or you're not quite up to it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Obviously, the season starts there. Can't wait to get out there.
The nerves again of getting back to work. That's what it is.
It's always great to play them. We've had a big rivalry with them since we started playing that first game, and every time we play them, it always seems to be pretty even.
The first game is obviously really important to get off to the start of a season well, and it's good for us to try and play some good footy, and not to mention that we're playing the arch rivals.
Thursday night footy, big crowd against Richmond. It's always really exciting.
2 clubs that have got a pretty healthy history and a good rivalry amongst themselves, and they're on the rise, and we're sort of making a good tilt to become a really solid side.
Big crowd, 2 big Melbourne clubs.
For the majority of young players, it's going to feel as if the game's passing you by at various stages, you know, whether it's round 1 in front of 80,000 or round 3 with 40 to 50,000 people. It's the same for most players.
I'm looking forward to the opportunity of playing in front of hopefully 80,000+ supporters. It's going to be huge.
We just say, just fulfil your role, you know, win the hard ball when it's there and just play the game. Don't be too overwhelmed by it all. Just understand it's the game itself is the same. It's just you're playing in front of a hell of a lot more people. But look, I'm sure we'll do well.
There's more than 4 points at stake tonight when Carlton and Richmond go head-to-head. They've been doing it since 1908. And, of course, we remember those great battles in the late 60s and the early 70s. Names like Fowler and Nichols and Balme and Southby, premierships amongst them, Sheedy and Walls going at each other. And tonight we just might write another chapter in this fabled story between these two great clubs, Carlton and Richmond, at the MCG. Let's go now to find out what the odds are. Believe it or not, it's quite incredible that we'd be discussing the odds in any anticipation at all. But Nathan Brown, the former Tiger himself, has got it for us at sportsbet.com.au. Nathan?
Thanks, Ed. The punters can smell an upset in the air. The Blues have come in from $4.50 to $4.25, although Richmond have had their own money, 5 times more than Carlton, $1.20 out to $1.24. Now, it's always good to kick the first goal of the year, and Jack Riewoldt does it time and time again at $7.50 if he can do it tonight. Dustin Martin's there as well, also Levi Casbolt for the Blues. If you place a head-to-head bet on any game in the AFL rounds 1 to 8 and your team leads at any break but goes on to lose, cash back up to $50. It happened 5 times in round 1 last year, but please gamble responsibly.
The pursuit of a free-flowing, higher-scoring brand of football in 2016, the AFL made some drastic rule changes. I think the most important one is the 5 metre to 10 metre protected area from 2015 to 2016. It's a major change, Brownie, that should impact scoring.
It's a major change. I think it'll have a positive impact on scoring and certainly quicken the game up. What it does, it gives space around the kicker who's taken a mark. Goes back here. You see Jared Ruffhead down here for Hawthorn. He was in an illegal position for 2016. However, 2015, that was fully legal. So obviously the man with the ball had to kick down the line a lot. Didn't encourage quicker ball movement, and certainly the kicker didn't encourage him to take that shorter kick on the 45 angle, which we know starts a good transition of play down the field.
We want more corridor, we want more free-flowing football, and you can see here the space that it provides. Only one player really within 30 metres of the ball, because players are worried about getting into that protected area and giving away a 50-metre penalty, which we see on these next 2 examples. They're judging it hard at the moment. They showed that through the NAB challenge period. You can see there Enright on his way through. He's really caught in no man's land. The umpire penalises him for being inside the 10 metres. Really tough to adjust to almost instantly, as we see the same example here with the GWS game.
They'll be very tough on it throughout the early rounds of the season. We always see with rule changes, the umpires are red hot on it, just so the players get used to it. And I think we'll see an increase on the scoring across the board, and I think it helps the better kicking sides as well.
Closer to goal is where it'll have its biggest impact. Pulling that man the mark from 5 metres back to 10 allows all sorts of time for the snapping Stevie J type shot at goal. 60% was a conversion rate for this type of kick last year, and I'd be staggered if that didn't go 80% plus in 2016.
And it's great. We love to go to the footy and see the guys close to goal kick the great goals and be able to run around and have time. I think if you've got the ball all the way into deep forward line, you deserve a clear shot on goal. So I think it's a good change all over the field.
We think the AFL have got this one right. Let's see what it does to scoring in 2016.
Yeah, look forward to it, Kingy. It'll also be interesting to see just the forwards. If you've got a decent kick with your alternate foot in those pockets, it's going to make it a lot easier to get around and open up the angle. Anyway, plenty to have a look at tonight. Gentlemen, I want you to stake your claim, Dermot Brereton, on what the big talking point of 2016 will be. Stake your claim.
I'm going to. I'm staking my claim. The Eagles and the Hawks are that far ahead of everybody else. Still be an interesting season when they all play out for third.
Wow, interesting. Wow.
But is it a mystery?
I think you're going to agree. Yeah,
it's a mystery.
Almost agree with you there, but it's a lot closer. I think there, Derm. You're going to agree with me here, Derm. The return of the key forwards. Only 2 key forwards kicked 60-plus goals last year, but I think with the 90 cap on the interchange and the return of Buddy Franklin, Tom Hawkins back into full fitness, and obviously the natural development of kids like Darcy Moore and Jonathan Patton, Tom Boyd, and of course Jesse Hogan, it's going to be a big year for us sellers, us forwards.
A long time ago for us, mate. Mine's about Ross Lyon, the mooted change of Ross Lyon. To kick 100 points, he's taken in Hale and Guerra as well as assistant coaches. Lose 2 games, Ross. We'll find out after 2 games if you've changed, if you've lost 2 in a row, because what'll happen, will you go back or will you stay the course?
Okay, let's go to David King in the Ultratune Lab. David?
I'm going with the Giants to be certainties for the 8 this year, Ed, on what we've seen through their back half of last season and the NAB Challenge period. They've gone from 1 to 6 to 11 wins the last 3 years, and I would be staggered if they did not make the 8. Jared?
I think you're right, David. I like your claim. I think it's going to be 100%. I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. I think Mark Evans and the Rules Committee have done the changes, as you and Jonathan Brown just showed us, and I hope the game opens up. But I've got a funny feeling we'll have a round table in round 10 and we'll be talking about congestion.
Congestion again, that's not a good sign, Jared. That's not a good one. Brad Johnson's had a big round table discussion. I'll be interested to see what he comes up with, given his Fremantle criticism during the week.
G'day, Kingy. G'day, Jared. Look, I've gone off Fremantle. I'm giving them a spell tonight. I've turned my attention to Port Adelaide, and I think they'll have their first ever Brownlow medalist at 2016. Robbie Gray will win the 2016 Brownlow medal.
And I'm staking my claim, here it is, that the biggest story in football will all be about the Bucks. As Gordon Gecko said, it's all about the Bucks, kid. Ooh. The rest is conversation. The players are lining... Not Nathan Buckley, not that Bucks. It's the Bucks in your pocket. The players are lining up for the money. The clubs have had enough of the AFL withholding the money. The AFL want to hang on to the money. We've got to decide whether we invest in stadiums or whether or not we sell them out. It's going to be big bucks.
So that translates to you've had enough of the AFL holding the money.
That's it, exactly. And as my cousin Jerry Maguire said, mate, show me the money! All right, and I'll tell you what, we're going to help you win some money right now too, because Fox Footy have got the $1 million ladder coming up. Have a look at this on the bottom of the screen. Sign up now for Fox Footy's $1 million ladder at foxfooty.com.au now. You could win $1 million if you can predict the ladder at the end of the home and away season. Well, Doom's giving you a start. He reckons, what, Hawthorn or West Coast first?
Hawthorn and West Coast, they're a lock for your top two, and you've got to lock down the bottom end, but you've got to get it in before the first bounce.
But hurry, says entries close, as Dermot said before the first ball to announce, the first bounce of the ball tonight. There's a free Foxtel to be won weekly with Fox Footy tipping. Register now at foxfooty.com.au. One of the kids who'll be lining up for big money in the not-too-distant future is Jacob Wiedering. We've spoken about him. We've seen him tonight. He's playing his first game for the Blues. He is the total package as far as a young player coming into the competition. What does everyone else think about him who plays with him?
Jacob Wiedering, Mount Martha Junior Football Club.
Jacob's been really impressive, just like all our young boys, but he's already mature beyond his years. I think he's absorbing everything. He's always asking questions, which is great for a young kid to do, and he's just impressive on the track. He's very composed with the footy.
Obviously, highly talented player. He's a big boy. His body's already ready for AFL, so I think we'll see a fair bit of him this year.
It'll be coming back. Wiedering again out points Lance Franklin this time.
We'll see him play a bit down back, and he's got the capabilities to play it forward. So maybe like a Harry Taylor sort of player who can take a good intercept mark and float forward when the team needs it.
Wiedering, 7 marks now.
There's a lot of boys down back who are working with him. Mickey Jamison and Samuel Rowe have been doing a fair bit of work with him. Got some experience back there with Kade Simpson as well, so I think he's got some really good guys to learn from.
Each player at the club is assigned with a mentor, and mine is Dale Amos from the Geelong Football Club, defence coach there over the premiership years. Plenty of quality defenders he's worked with, especially. Obviously, you've got your Harry Taylors, Tom Monagans and Jared Rivers, that they've been there, Tom Harleys as well. All his knowledge and wisdom I'll certainly draw on, and hopefully I can develop into a defender much like themselves.
Yeah, mature beyond his years. I think the word that comes to mind is composed. He's very composed on and off the field. And the one thing we do need to remember, though, with all draft picks, they are only 18. They take time. We've got to have patience, and you have ups and downs, but to date he hasn't put a foot wrong.
Wiedering drops back and cleverly knocks it through.
Reads the ball really well. Reads the ball early. That's why he's able to get in such good position.
There's always going to be pressure externally from the media, and the supporters, I guess, but internally as well. Not letting your family down, not letting your teammates down, your coaches down. You just got to control all that and worry about your circle of influence and go from there.
Yeah, the number one pick and a key defender for the Carlton Football Club. So who better to call his name out than the fullback of the century, Stephen Silvani, who's with our man Brad Johnson.
Well, Sauce, we caught up in Noosa actually over the summer, a bit of body surfing. We spoke about the list in the warm waters at Noosa, but one of your youngsters tonight, he gets to make his debut in Jacob Wiedering. It's pretty exciting.
No, obviously it is. It's exciting for him, exciting for Carlton people. Obviously pick number one in the draft, key position play, can play back but also forward. But look, he's obviously played 2 NAB Challenge games. He played really, really well in both. So, hopefully he has a good one tonight. But I know it really should be a 10 to 15 year play for our football club.
That's pretty exciting. Also exciting is the first game for your coach, Brendan Bolton. Have you crossed paths with him in the rooms? How's he going?
No, I haven't seen him at the ground. I have spoken to him throughout the day. But look, Brendan's been fantastic. He's brought a lot of energy to the club. Obviously, he's a teacher. He's a teaching coach. And look, everything at the minute is really positive. A lot of excitement around the club. And I really think he's got the players backing as well.
What about tonight then, Sauce? The Tigers have got a few injuries. You really must be pretty confident that you can take a win.
Oh, look, we know it. We know we're up against it. Obviously, the Tigers played finals last year, but I think if you look at our two NAB Cup games, our game against Hawthorn, we were pretty good for a couple of quarters there, and our game against Sydney, we both had 21 scoring shots, so they got some easy goals. We sort of needed to fix our defensive side of things, but look, we're relatively confident we can put up a really good show.
Well, good luck tonight, mate, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Stephen Silvani there with Brad Johnson. Let's go back to the newsroom now with Johnny Ralph. Ralphie from the Herald Sun, what have you got, buddy?
Well, so many question marks over the off-season about the fitness of Chris Yarran, or lack thereof, and also about his lack of professionalism, and a lot of rumours surrounding his last days at Carlton. What we do know is that he's dealing with a handful of really personal and serious mental issues that his confidence believe that he is slowly addressing. They are asking for some time for some people who have been extremely critical of him. Now, Richmond didn't want to revisit it this week, but I did speak to their head of football, Dan Richardson, and he believes that he can still be on track for around 6 or 8 return after that surgery. He said, we are only looking forward with Chris Yarran. He has fitted into the group. He has fitted into our culture. We believe that he will be a very good footballer for this football club. Now, of course, 7 kilograms overweight coming to the first football club, your first pre-season at a new football club is unacceptable. But Richmond did do their due diligence. They knew what they were getting, and they just felt he could really make an impact in that back line.
There you go. All right, boys, Friday night football on Good Friday. What do you reckon, Ralphie? The talk is, or the soft launch seemed to come from the AFL this week, that next year with the new TV rights still in place, we might be playing it, not as round one, obviously, but during the Easter weekend.
That's right, and Carlton has tipped in with an audacious bid. They believe they can play in round one against Richmond in the season opener, but they can also play on Good Friday on April 16 as it falls next year. Now, they believe that their proximity to, of course, the Royal Children's Hospital and the Good Friday appeal can value add to that amazing occasion that we all know and love rather than detract from it. And as Stephen Trigg told me, he says, we don't have a lot of marquee games out there. If Good Friday is available, we would love to be a part of it. We don't have a signature game apart from round one. So, of course, the jostling will start, but I think it will happen. And round one and Good Friday are separated for at least the next 8 years. So Carlton believes it can play in both of those games.
All right, what else have you got there, mate? Jacob Wiedering, we're talking a lot about him. How's his contract going?
Well, he's the man that Carlton believes that they can build their next premiership around. Now, of course, they're looking for 17. It will take them some time. So much so that they will approach him in the next couple of weeks to consider an early contract extension. Now, he hasn't played a game yet, but he's everything that they hope that he might be. He's nerveless and he's self-assured, and he's just a zero-drama person at a club that's had a lot of dramas. They've already locked in Patrick Cripps long-term, and they believe if they gave him an extra year, it would be a real show of strength.
All right.
Quickly on the teams, guys, 16 teams are just dropping now. Nick Rewell will be named. American Jason Holmes will be elevated in place of Jake Carlisle. Dion Prestia will come back quickly from his knee surgery. Debuts, Clayton Oliver, Darcy Parrish, Clayton Mills, Callum Mills, Wayne Miller, and Brad Crouch is likely to come straight back in after his own little issues. And Ed, there is a breaking story. My colleague Mark Robinson has just written on the Herald Sun website that 11 Collingwood players tested positive to those hair tests over the summer. He's saying that it is a bombshell that will affect the AFL's illicit drugs policy. Have you got any comment on it? I know it is a question without any notice.
Well, it is a question without any notice and a question without any basis. In fact, as far as I know, it could well be the truth because we don't find out. We get piecemeal information. We're speaking to the AFL, I think, in the next couple of weeks about the hair testing results, Ralphie. But until the clubs have actually got some control over it, there's no point talking to the clubs. It's an AFL and AFL Players Association matter. We've been talking about this for a long time. Collingwood's been very strong about it as well. So, as you said, that's the first I've heard of it. So there's no further comment from the club. If we had any further comment, we probably couldn't anyway because these things are supposed to remain confidential. So it's interesting to hear that Mark Robinson would have that story and where he'd get that from. So there can only be a couple of different sources that he could be able to get that from if in fact it is accurate. Anyway, we'll take a break, Ralphie. We'll come back and chat about that a little bit later on in the night. We'll find out if there's any other stories around. But I think given the fact that 1 in 8 people were pulled over by Victoria Police over the Melbourne Cup campaign tested positive to drugs is a bigger issue than we've ever looked at before in the past. Football, a microcosm of the rest of the world. We've got to get to the bottom of this. Maybe it's time to get fair income. We'll take a break on Fox Footy. Thursday night footy. When we return, thanks to Holden, we'll be looking at the big game tonight, Richmond and Carlton at the MCG.
You're watching Tigers Blues. This is Thursday night footy on Fox.
Last year was a pretty tough time. We got sort of beaten by large margins. The mood can sort of drop, but yeah, the whole place has been re-energised.
And as for Carlton, well, their season ends with a fourth wooden spoon since 2002 and a rebuild in the offing.
I've lived a life of chasing challenge, and there's a massive challenge at Carlton, but I think it's a club that's untapped and has real unity at the moment and has a want to grow and develop. So from day one, I felt everyone was on the same page, and we're looking to try and get this club up and bubbling again.
The whole place feels like a new club.
There was actually a comment made by a senior player on my first day, and he said it's really starting to feel like an AFL club again.
Bringing a lot to the table in terms of game plan and the way he wants to go about it. What's really impressed me is the way he's taught the group on what he wants.
Don't just sit there and be a recipient. Be a participant. Understand.
We've had a philosophy in the way in which we're coaching about making sure the players are participants in the learning, not recipients, and really defining what learning is. And learning is about conversation. It's about thinking, analysing and creating, and it's okay to get the answer wrong.
Every part of the game, there's always something to learn, and making sure everyone's on the same page, all the coaches are delivering the same message.
I'm a teacher and a coach, and that's the exact environment I like to be in.
The whole team aspect, it's not a couple of individuals aren't going to get the job done, it's everyone in buying together and moving forward as one.
Yeah, it's not what my non-negotiables are, it's what our non-negotiables are, and we don't really like to call them non-negotiables, they're our values, but a lot of them, without going into the real details about unity, competitiveness, the ability to endure. And one we've driven really strongly is around whole of club. I've learned over the journey that it takes all. It's not just the footy department, it's the administration, it's our board, all on the one page. So, yeah, there's some of the things we've been driving whole of club and unity in particular.
Yeah, Brendan Bolton, he's going to be a revelation this year. We're looking forward to see how he goes now that he steps out from behind Alistair Clarkson and takes over the big test at Carlton Football Club. Brad Johnson's a big rap for him, is at the MCG. Jono?
G'day, Ed. Yeah, look, I really am, and it's probably on the back of what I saw watching the journey on Fox Footy, the Carlton documentary, and when you look at that, it gave a great insight into how Brendan Bolton, I think, is going to coach this group. But a part of that, he took the first-year players to Tasmania, and straight away you could see the type of lessons that he was going to teach this young group that he's got at Carlton. One goes, we all go, were one of the messages that he sent through to this playing group. Let's take a bit of a look.
As the draftees step aboard the boat that will take them to remote Bruny Island, it becomes apparent that Charlie Curnow has forgotten to bring his yellow football along. A key rule of the camp has been broken, so punishment must be served.
All right, pick one, teammate.
Cunners.
All right, now you two got to strip off your shorts, swim out of that boat.
Can we actually?
Yeah. And take your footies with you. Come on, let's go. Play. Make sure you don't leave your footies behind anymore, boys.
If one goes, what has to happen in our game plan? What's happened here?
Three have gone.
Two are gone. What's going to happen if you just let someone go and they get burnt in our game plan?
Screws everyone up.
Screws everyone up? What was I hoping happened then?
Everyone jump in.
What you said, one in, all in. I'll let you decide how this all operates now.
Yeah, we're all going in.
So where is this going to go? Good, mate.
Hey, ready?
Ready.
There you go. One in, all in at Carlton.
Yeah.
Sellers, what are your thoughts on Brendan Bolton? You had plenty of thoughts on Mick Malthouse.
Yeah, I did, and I've got some great thoughts about this young man. He's building a new football club. I love the way he sets standards for people, and one of the things that Carlton always prided itself on, you go out a better person than you come in, and I think this is the case that's going to happen from now on. He's terrific. He's a breath of fresh air, and the Carlton supporters love it, and they will for some time.
I think we got an insight into Brendan Bolton away from the press conferences. Everyone thought he was the giggly, smiley, happy-faced little man, but he's a very intense guy. I've spoke to a couple of guys that have interviewed for playing roles at Carlton, and they were really impressed by his knowledge of the game and how forthright he was.
There's nothing new about what he's doing. It's basic, simple stuff that makes you feel better about yourself and work for your teammate instead of actually being an individual. It's not about me. It's about how I can help you.
What about the past players? They've always been strong at Carlton. Do you feel welcomed in? Have you spoken to him? Has he had much interaction with the past players?
He's called us in for a couple of things to do, and he's been very accommodating and supportive. And that's unusual sometimes for some coaches.
All right, let's go back to the lab now
for
Ultra Tune as we build up on this Thursday night footy. Thanks to Holden, Kingy and Jared. Welcome back, boys.
We were just thinking, Ed, next time you get that boat out, it's one in, all in,
yes.
okay? Don't just keep it for yourself like you have been the last couple of years.
Mick Fanning's in town.
Mick Fanning's in town.
If that had been a little Fingo pass, it would have been one out, all out, I can tell you.
Nuts and bolts approach, Jared. It is, as the boys touched on next door, it's a whole-of-life approach. Yep. He really educates these young fellas on what to do outside of hours and really not just worry about the 2 hours of game day to make their name, but to get their whole life sorted with their university studies, their jobs, and then they can refine the list. Then they can build on what they know they have.
Well, he's had a great mentor. Alistair Clarkson is one of the all-time great coaches of any era, and he would have learned a lot, and he would be applying the same ethos. We've seen it before. We've seen how Hawthorn corrected really quickly by getting those early picks right. You can see there, Roughhead, Franklin, Lewis in one draft. And then at the end of the year, they had some luxuries. They could trade some players out to get further picks. Players like Jonathan Hay, Nathan Thompson and the like. 1, 10 and 12. That's the core. They are the guys that have to make a name for Carlton over the next 3 to 4 years to give them a chance. Well, they haven't gone for a Jordan Lewis type because they've already got a young gun in Patrick Cripps in the midfield. I think everybody's already given Wiedering a tick. Harry McKay's an interesting one. He's a speculator, hasn't got the statistical background that would absolutely make you confident. Curnow, I think, has shown a fair bit more in the practice matches. Looks like an outstanding prospect. Let's have a look at their list because they've got 17 players from other clubs or second club opportunities. And go to the Carlton list if we can and have a look at where they sit. They don't have an elite player on that list, and that's a real concern. And that's why their list rating is 17. Only Essendon are below them. We know the problems that they're having at the moment. This is the area, the average section, where they're going to get the most benefit, Jared. And there's some names in there that really shouldn't be in there. Elite rating is the top 10% in the competition in your position. Cruiser is that as a ruckman and should be in there. Gibbs is that as a midfielder. But Patrick Cripps is the one we want to talk about today and touch on his first 23 games of AFL football. Well, as much as it's an overall package, and that's why he's still in the average, he is an elite clearance player. So we can see that he's got a couple of elite ticks already, clearances and contested performances or contested possessions. But what he does have is still got some upside. He can go forward and take a mark. I saw him in New Zealand in round 4 or 5 last year. He should have won the medal, the Anzac Day medal that day. And he is, I think, one of the stars that they can build upon. His kicking will get better. I think his confidence will come and he'll have assess more time. His hands are amazing. But the size of this guy is something to behold. He is a beast, isn't he, in the contest? And I'll tell you what they have got. They've got a ball winner for the best part of a decade, almost instantly. I think his impact at the AFL level in his first 20 games has been unheard of, really. And people are saying that Wiedering could be the captain. So could this young bloke as well. Best and fairest in his second year. That ticks an enormous box. You've got to build on consistency. You can't have guys that are good one day and you see them again 6 weeks later and they put their hand up. This young man, he gives you a performance each and every week. And if anybody saw Carlton and Cripps play against the Swans 2 weeks ago, you'd know that he is the significant player for that midfield. Have a look at the size of him, 195 centimetres. That is 2 centimetres taller than Nick Riewoldt, who's been a centre-half forward, one of the best that we've seen for the last decade or so. 1 centimetre shorter than Josh Kennedy, who won last year's Coleman medal. So you're saying he's playing out of position? No, I'm not saying he's playing out of position. I think that's the reason why he wins 60% of his ball in contested situations, because he's just such a big beast to stop. Let's go straight to the MCG and have a chat with the coach of the Richmond Football Club and ask him what he's going to do about Patrick Cripps. Welcome, Damien, to the coverage. He's a beast, isn't he? How are you going to handle Patrick Cripps?
Yeah, he's very good. We obviously went and watched him play versus Sydney. It was incredible. I think he had 9 clearances up to three-quarter time. he's one of those special players I think can get the ball at speed and then manage to get his arms free. So look, we've got a couple of things that we'll try tonight to subdue his influence, but he's just so clever around stoppages. He's going to get them. We've just got to make sure we make them as ineffective as we can.
Damien, it's an amazing game, this one. The whole footy world is focusing on your game. It seems as if your game's worth 12 points. You go in with everything to lose in many respects. How are you and the club coping with it all?
Oh, listen, it's one of those things, Jared, it occurs every year, but from our point of view, it's an incredibly long season. We know that. We've just got to worry about the task at hand. And, you know, people have probably dropped off Carlton a little bit, but I look at them and they played really well versus Hawthorn and also exceptionally well versus Sydney, and they rested the majority of their side via Essendon. So I think people are probably a little bit off them when I think they're actually going to be a better side than most predict.
Damien, it's Dermot Burton here. How are you, mate? I just want to ask you about Jacob Townsend. You know I really, really love the kid. He's a bull, but he's best when he's got a target applied to somebody. Who have you set him for tonight?
Yeah, I don't think he needs one specific player, Derm. I reckon he goes at all of them. Look, he's a talented player in the fact that he's contested ball-wise, he's very good, but he tackles incredibly hard too. He's from a rugby background. We saw his old man walk into the room before going with the jumper presentation. He's a lump of a man too. So when he fills out, Jacob, once he hits mature age, he's going to be incredible size. Look, from our point of view, he's been very good pre-season. He needs to get a little bit more uncontested ball, but we got him for a specific reason. His contested ball and tackle numbers, so they'll be the things to look out for tonight.
Yeah, Damien, it's Brownie here. How do you see your game style going this year? Obviously, last year you had that more slow, considered build-up. Seems to be in the NAB challenge that all the sides are moving the ball a little bit quicker. How's the Richmond game style look this year?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of both. It's the ability to go fast and slow, reading the defence, probably what that gives you also. And we're looking to increase our goal scoring by a couple of goals. I think we're at 88 points last year. We are looking to get to that 100 point mark. But from our point of view, we've got to get to those 88 points first and then look to establish that. So those two goals are going to come basically from clearance and centre forward turnovers. So we've worked on those over the course of the summer and looking forward to seeing how that goes tonight.
What about the positive football from Gillon McLaughlin? What's that mean?
The attractive footy? Oh, listen, I think all as coaches we have got an aim to be attractive footy, but my job first and foremost is to win. So that'll be number one on my priority list. I think it was Mark, was it?
Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah.
Good on you, Damien. As we all know, mate, attractive football for your supporters is when your team got more points on the scoreboard than the opposition at the end of the game. Good luck, mate. Have a great season.
Appreciate
and thanks for being part of the action here on Fox Footy. We really appreciate it.
Cheers. Have a good night.
All right, let's go back to David King. It's time for the predictions. Kingy, you are the ringmaster. You are a tough taskmaster as well. Let's start season 2016 off with a big one. What do you got for us?
A lot of feedback, particularly from you, Ed, last year. So we've changed the voting format, Jared. You still have to put your prediction in. 3, 2 and 1. Brownlow style. I know you like Brownlow style. So you should go well at this. I've gone with Rance the Reason. He'll be in the votes tonight. He'll be a one-man wall down back. Don't worry about who he plays on or the magnet that he's next to or the player he's next to. He'll cover the whole back six as he has done for 12 months. What are you going with?
I've gone with Dustified. Dusty's an irregular champion. Magnificent one week, not so the next. To have the champion tag Dustified, I think he needs to jump from the above average category into the elite category. I'll give you some numbers from the last time they played finals football. Dusty had 21 possessions. He was one of their best, but he had no goals, no score assists, and most of them were in the back 50. Dusty needs to go inside forward 50 where he does his damage and do it week in, week out.
Look forward to seeing if he can. Let's go to Brad Johnson at the MCG. I'm sure they have something different for us. Brad, what have you got?
G'day, Kingy. Yeah, look, tonight I'm going to continue the focus on Jacob Wiedering. 6+ intercept marks. The record on debut is 5, held by Michael Hibbard, Brett Goods and Travis Gasper. That's right, Travis Gasper. So tonight, Jacob Wiedering breaks that record. 6+ intercept marks on debut.
Very good. Dern, what about yourself? What are you going with?
Well, I touched on it before. Jacob Townsend, Mr. T. Pity the fool, he's going to break some bones. Somebody will come off the field. Somebody will be carried off the field tonight because of Mr. T.
Yeah, the last time it was him.
Yeah, I know. I said some. That's right. I cleaned that up with somebody.
I love that one. That's almost in the vote straight away, the one whether it comes in or not. Brownie, what do you got?
Hot Cotch buns for me.
Oh!
Easter. And it didn't require help from Jared Healy, that line, so there you go. That's a la natural.
He's breaking
Trent
out.
Cotchin, after an off-season of criticism, I saw him the other night, and he's got the fire in the eyes. He's ready to bounce back. He will spend some time forward. I think 25 possessions and 2 goals for the Richmond skipper.
Sellers, wow, that's a high bar they're setting. Sellers, can you come with us?
I'm trying to, mate. I'm trying to. Mark Murphy, the Blues skipper, 25 plus, just after a major shoulder injury, get him back into the game.
Ed, are you going to be the wordsmith tonight? What have you gone with?
Well, guys, the Batman versus Superman opens up tonight, and I think it's going to be Cripps tonight to just cut down the Superman that is Dustin Martin. Young Cripps is a superstar of the game. I think he might be the most effective midfield player on the ground tonight. Ooh. May not get Carlton over the line, but it may be the difference between the two sides. It's going to be a battle of the midfields, hey?
What happens if they do and Dusty plays well as well?
Well, I'm saying he'll be the best player on the ground for him, in the midfield.
So he could be fantastic, but if Dusty is better, you don't win.
Leave it to me, Ed. I'll sort that out post-game. Leave it to me.
I'm still staggered on Dermot's suggestion that somebody is going to get you points because they've been knocked out or have knocked somebody else out. Nothing has changed in 30 years with you,
No.
Speaking of our 30 years, for 30 years, Dermot Breeden was probably the object of Caroline Wilson and Mike Sheehan's attention. Certainly the biggest names in the print media, Caroline Wilson and Mike Sheehan. And on Open Mic on Tuesday night, the new time at 8:30, great time slot to watch Open Mic. These two go head-to-head.
You're watching Thursday Night Footy on Fox. Pre-game brought to you by Holden.
Jack Riewoldt, welcome. What a start, eh?
Yes. He'll be good, big Jackie boy. He's got a pretty good knowledge of the game.
I've seen what he can do in meetings, and he sees things that not a lot of other people see.
You can already see it in the captain's eyes where he thinks he's going to go as a leader and we're going to go as a group.
He's a far better media man than what I am, so I'm glad that the wider community can appreciate his footy brain as well, hopefully not his gags.
The players are demanding on Trent to step up as captain, and from what I've seen in this pre-season, he's really got some fire in the belly for this year. I'm really excited to see him play on Thursday. So am I.
Jack will be Jack. He's a character. He wears his heart on his sleeve, so I'm sure you guys will capture some good vision to use during the show.
We just hope that he toes the party line and says the right things.
He will be a revelation this year, Jack Riewoldt, on AFL 360 on a Tuesday night. He'll say things that Richmond aren't comfortable with, and that's why we love him. But as a footballer, what he's brought to Punt Road has been unbelievable. It's been unparalleled since Matthew Richardson days, on and off field.
Yeah, you look at these numbers. Obviously, his goal kicking's what he's been known for, that's for sure. But his work all around the field now is fantastic. I think he's Richmond's best player. Look at those midfield numbers, 3.1 marks. That's a definite jump. He gets up the field, takes his mark, but it hasn't come at the price of kicking goals, King.
Still kicked 54 goals last year, but there's the 2014 heat map you talk about. Yeah. Getting his possessions closer to goal. They're still wide. Maybe that's because of the Richmond ball movement. Maybe that's because he's a fraction undersized. But pushing further outside of 50 in 2015, what 2016 looks like, we don't really know. Yeah. But what we saw in the NAB Cup, saw him marking the ball high on the half-back flank, wing area, being everything to his team coming out of that back line.
This is good. This is his all-round game, and this blows up his opponent too. The guy playing on him, he gets him up the field, works him over. He'll be able to then turn him and get him inside 50 and allow him to take marks like that. He doesn't need to carry the weight, so he can get upfield. He's not a wrestling type of a player. He's more of a jumper. Fantastic.
Absolute steal at pick 13 back in 2006. This guy was taken only 18 months later, Alex Rance, the intercept marker at half-back. He's this All-Australian centre half-back. He's everything to them, isn't he? He's the glue that holds that back line together.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Two hardest positions on the ground to fill, centre half-back, centre half-forward. Alex Rance, he's terrific. One-on-ones are fantastic. It's his recovery, I believe. He not only stops the guy from marking him, but then keeps his feet, recovers well, and he's really added this part to his game, which is important for Richmond to bring the ball out of defence, King.
I think he knows his limitations now. He knows he's not a great kicker. He's a safe kicker. But he can create handball chains that keep the speed in their counter-attack. That's been the problem for Richmond. Once they've marked the ball down back, their play-on rate is the worst in the competition. And I think this is an area they'll focus on to make radical change in 2016.
They have to focus on this area of the game. I think the tendency of most sides throughout the pre-season is to move the ball quicker in the AFL this year. I think Richmond will have to follow suit, and Alex Rance will definitely have to be a big contributor to that. The X-factor is Shane Edwards, who's not a defender, but certainly moves the ball well and kicks it well. But they've brought on Chris Yarran from Carlton as well, which he'll play halfback.
big investment in Chris Yarran, pick 23, given up for him at the trade table last year. They need to return the second half of the year. But what we do know, Ed, is they've got a great centre-half back and a great centre-half forward, all Australians, both of them in 2015. That's a great launching point.
It certainly is. It's just going to be a fantastic game of football tonight. So many great young players coming through the AFL at the moment. Boys, we spoke early on about this wonderful rivalry between Richmond and Carlton. The 70s and the 60s, the late 60s and early 70s was a magnificent time. But so too has round one been a great battleground in recent times. 2008 was the first one on the Thursday night between these two sides. Chris Judd ran out in his first match for the Blues, played a blinder, but it was Richo Man, yes, Matthew Richardson, who dominated that game with 5 goals and 11 marks. Tigers by 30 points.
Let's push forward 1 year, 2009, round one, and Ben Cousins makes his much publicised return to the AFL, running out in the yellow and the black, and he was looking pretty good until he went down with that hamstring injury. But another debutant came good that night. His name was Mitch Robinson, and he made his mark with 3 goals, one from downtown, right over the top. And Eddie Betts, well, he chimed in as well with 5 majors, and in the end was the Blues by 83 points.
Move forward to 2012, and you wouldn't believe it was round one again. And there he was, Trent Cotchin. He's had 27 disposals and 2 goals to help his side keep in this game. And then all of a sudden it was Mark Murphy with 32 at the other end and a goal. And the Blues sneak home by 44 points.
In round one in 2013, it was Gibbs and Judd, 60 disposals, 4 goals between them for the 2 stars from Princes Park. But it wasn't enough for the Blues. In a turn-up from the year before, it was Cotchin who was at the other end who made the difference. This time, his great play, 33 disposals, saw the Tigers get home by 5 points. One of the most fascinating incidents that happened in recent times in these Richmond-Carlton games was that match back in 2009, as Dermot said, when Ben Cousins played his first game for the Tigers. Let's go to David King. David, you're assistant coach of the Tigers that night. His hamstring came as a major shock for all of us calling the game, maybe not for the Tiger insiders.
Well, not for Ben. I'm convinced that his hamstring earlier in the week, and such is the toughness of him as a man, as a person, so focused he was able to get himself to a point where he could play, where he could get out on the field, because he knew the build-up was so intense. Everyone was coming to watch him play. 80,000 people coming to the MCG. It was all about Ben. It had been for months. See this man perform for the Tigers. And credit to him to get out there, but it all went sadly wrong in that third quarter. I think the Richmond faithful knew they were coming to see the start and the finish of Richmond's year in 3 quarters of footy. It was unbelievable.
And it felt like the season did finish when Ben went down, because it'd been 3 months of speculation. Was he going to be able to get on the list? Wasn't he going to get on the list? He was ringing up Mike Fitzpatrick and Andrew Demetrio demanding that he get an opportunity. Yeah. It must have been a pretty disappointing time when he went down, though, Ed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's go to Johnny Ralph for more updates from our newsroom tonight. Ralphie?
Well, I had a major breaking news tonight involving Collingwood and drugs, and on the night of the season opener, that results in huge headlines. Now, my colleague Mark Robertson is reporting in the Herald Sun that 11 of Collingwood's players, that is a quarter of their list, tested positive to off-season hair testing. Now, of course, we know that is a voluntary program and it does not result in positive strikes, but it is the tip of the iceberg. Several rival clubs had figures that exceeded that, potentially some by some margin, and there are also some others that were comparable. So it is not only a Collingwood story, but the Collingwood numbers are those that have been made public. Now, of course,
you said they're made public. Who's made them public?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Mark Robinson has his sources. Now, clearly, Ed, you wouldn't necessarily be aware of them. So many of these are confidential, or if you were aware of them, you wouldn't be able to.
No, but I'm just interested why it's Collingwood's issue.
Well, Collingwood sells papers, and of course, Collingwood is the club that just had 2 of its players in Lachlan Keefe and Josh Thomas suspended. They did have traces of clenbuterol after they did admit to illicit drugs. And of course, Collingwood is the club that has come out only 2 weeks ago. Your chief executive, Gary Purton, said that there is still volcanic behaviour from players. Now, Mark Evans said on this program on Fox Football a couple of days ago that potentially in the future, if you test positive for a hair test during the season, then you might be suspended or you might get a strike under the illicit drugs code, but that's not the case. Ed, we've already asked you about it. Can I ask you now, is it time for a zero tolerance policy in the AFL? The AFLPA have already said they're not willing to go back to the bargaining table or the negotiation table, but what is your policy to fix this health crisis, which of course is something that stretches across all of Australia?
Well, John, it's an interesting one. John Witherow, the outgoing president of the Gold Coast Suns, at the president's meeting last week with the AFL Commission, was very strong in saying that, and in fact tonight his club, I think, have announced some multi-million dollar sponsorship deals, and he was saying that it's so hard for clubs to go out and do deals with big organisations and sponsors with this all in the background. Now, as you mentioned, and as I said a bit earlier tonight, the official figures from Victoria Police over the Grand Final and the Melbourne Cup weekend was 1 in 8 people who were pulled over by Victoria Police tested positive while driving to illicit drugs. So it is a massive social situation. It has moved on, as we have said at Collingwood for a long time, far beyond what the AFL wanted to do in the first place, so much so that the AFL no longer releases the results of these hair tests, except it would appear tonight that if this is correct, but I'm not in a position to argue one way or the other. But if it is, well, then that's the figure. And if it's not, well, then we need to get to the bottom of it. But you're reporting also, John, that this seems to be a huge spike in these illicit drug testing situations. Now, a lot of these tests that we're talking about were done during the 6-week period when the players are on holidays, the period that the AFL Players Association fought to allow players not to be tested. Now, they're being tested now, but there's no reaction to them. So we've got to decide, I think, one way or the other. Either we're going to stand against illicit drugs and support the players who, we're seeing a lot more people getting into health issues, both mental and physical health because of drugs. We know that. It's a pandemic through our society at the moment. So what we have to do is decide just exactly what we want to do. Do we even have these tests going forward? Do we even bother about them if we're not going to do anything about it? Or do we say this is what we demand of our players and as part of the collective bargaining agreement? You want a pay rise? Well, then you have to be subject to more onerous testing, and if you come up with a strike, you get rubbed out. Somewhere along the line there, that's going to be the discussion. Maybe we need to stamp our claim back again, guys, and just say that this is going to be the big issue of the year in the first 6 months. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, the players are ready to go on the MCG.
Tigers, Blues. This is Thursday Night Footy on Fox.
Oh, we're disappointed. I suppose we're pretty gutted as well, to be honest.
You look out over the MCG, North Melbourne fans on their feet clapping, Richmond fans under their seats hiding.
It's do or die, and unfortunately we haven't been able to pass the test at the moment.
The Tigers have that nervousness that maybe it's just the fans are getting nervous, but that moment's arrived again, hasn't it?
Over to you, Richmond. The challenge has been set. Are you up to it?
They can't get out of it, the Tigers. They're going to have the longest pre-season, I reckon, in the history of the AFL. They're going to be heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken.
A hand pass forward to old man Boomer, who will probably have the last kick of the day. He does. And off the end of it, he hobbles towards the boundary into a celebration.
But it's happened to the Tigers again. Soul-destroying moment for Tiger fans around the country. Utter jubilation for North Melbourne fans.
For Richmond, well, you've got the loser's lament. That's the prize for the loser when you get to knockout territory.
North Melbourne spectacular winners. Hearts are broken and Punt Road again.
All I can say is the players are hurting as much as anyone at the moment, and this will really hurt the blokes going forward.
And the Tigers get stage fright again.
A horrible feeling, Jared and Brownie, and I know number 33, which is the gap in contested possessions in that elimination final against the Kangaroos, has been bandied around at Richmond for some months now, and there's time to do something about it tonight.
They've recruited to help that particular element of the game, Kingy, but I think the coach also has to address some issues. They were picked apart tactically by Brad Scott last year. Cochin was sat on, Ellis was sat on. And when Hurley got up and had a look for someone to kick the ball to, there was no one to go to. So they played a slow brand of football. They're really relying upon two men. Dustin Martin, I just addressed that earlier. He's got to play forward. I'm really hoping he does. And Jack Rewell, well, he just continues to be a champ.
Brownie, we'll have a look at some vision of Trent Cotchin. Yeah. Is that fair or unfair, the way that he's spoken about with his finals performances?
No, it was fair. Certainly last year's final, that's for sure. But it's been inconsistent. He submitted there to Ben Jacobs. Ben Jacobs was all over. He didn't get help from his teammates, and he didn't get help from Damien Hardwick, who should have thrown him forward. But a good, strong leader, especially a captain, has a responsibility to say, no, you know what, I'm going to go forward. Or at least I'm going to whack into Ben Jacobs. I played with the great Michael Voss. He would never, ever be passive when it came to his opponent. He would always attack to get himself into the game, to get him into that combative mindset. We've seen that with Cochin against Hawthorn last year when he started the first bounce and whacked into Luke Hodge. That's what he's got to do to get himself into the game and get all his teammates to follow him.
If they're to be a top 4 team this year, Jared, they've got to get more pieces in the puzzle. I mean, they've got some absolute rippers in there, some All-Australians, centre-half forward, centre-half back. Cochin he may have won a Brownlow. He's almost won one a couple of years ago. Edwards is an elite high-forward midfielder. And then they've got a whole host of players that aren't quite there yet. Do they have the spine and do they have the list to take them to top 4?
At the moment, I don't think they have, unless there's a major improvement in that underbelly at this stage. Vlosten and Dustin Martin are 2 excellent players coming through in that 25 and under. But if you try and pull out a few others, Conker's not there yet. He was a high draft pick. They need the likes of Daniel Rioli, to come through and really, I guess, show that there's another A grade coming through in that underage department.
The other thing with the A grade is they never play well together. You need your 5 or 6 best players to play well on the same day for Richmond to be consistently a good side.
They don't want that tonight. They want that in September, let's be honest. But I wonder whether the problem is between the ears, because the Richmond people, even their fans, they all get nervous around games that they just should win. They should be winning tonight, and they probably should be winning well. You're talking about against the Carlton, who are at the bottom end of a rebuild. They're hardly taking a forward step at the moment. It has to be between their ears, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's always a combination of factors. Clearly, that was a problem, and it is tonight again until it's stamped on the head. But it all gets back to, I think, ability. And I don't think their depth of ability justifies them being seen as a top 4 side yet.
Ed's happy tonight. I think Ed feels like he can't lose tonight. One of these 2 teams are going to get beat, Ed.